There is someone living inside you whom you have never met. He knows your secrets because he is made of them. Every quality you despise, every impulse you swallowed, every truth about yourself you refuse to look at, it all went somewhere. Nothing in the psyche simply vanishes. I spent my life finding out where it goes. I called that place the shadow. And I will tell you the law that governs it, the most dangerous law I ever discovered. The less you acknowledge your shadow, the blacker and denser it becomes. Pay attention to the mechanics here, because they decide your fate. A weakness you are conscious of can be corrected. You see it, you work on it, it improves. But a weakness you have repressed, it never gets corrected. It sits in the dark, gathering strength, waiting for a moment of unawareness, and then it bursts forth. You have already witnessed this. The hostile remark that escaped your mouth in a friendly conversation, and you thought, where did that come from? The cruelty that surfaces after a few drinks. The mood that descends on you with no explanation. That was not an accident. That was him. The one you locked away, speaking while the guard slept. I define the shadow simply. It is the thing a person has no wish to be. The sum of everything you have hidden from yourself because it seemed weak, shameful, socially unacceptable, even evil. And here is where it becomes truly dangerous. What you refuse to assimilate in yourself, you will project onto others. Test this against your own life. Think of the person who irritates you beyond all reason, the arrogance you cannot stand, the laziness that disgusts you, the neediness that makes your skin crawl. Why does it burn so much? Other people's flaws do not produce that heat. Only your own do, when you meet them wearing someone else's face. The world has been functioning as your mirror, and you have been arguing with your own reflection. Some people maintain a working acquaintance with their shadow. The ego sees it and can command it. But many refuse the meeting so completely that they cannot even perceive their shadow's behavior. And a shadow that is not seen answers to no one. It becomes autonomous. It expresses itself in inexplicable moods, in irritability, in sudden cruelty, and you sign your name to its actions, believing they were yours. But now I must tell you the part almost everyone gets wrong, and it changes everything. The shadow is not your enemy. You assume that what you buried was evil. Much of it was gold. Into that same darkness you threw your normal instincts, your appropriate reactions, your realistic insights, your creative impulses. Society demanded a polished version of you, and you paid for the polish with living pieces of yourself. My closest collaborator, Marie-Louise von France, put it perfectly. The shadow is not necessarily an opponent. He is exactly like any human being you must get along with. Sometimes you give in, sometimes you resist, sometimes you give love. He becomes hostile only when he is ignored or misunderstood. Consider one example. Somewhere a child decided that being assertive meant being rude. So he buried his assertiveness, and with it went his confidence, his ability to speak honestly for himself. Decades later, he cannot ask for the raise. He watches lesser men pass him. He struggles with money and calls it bad luck. And when he meets a genuinely assertive person, he feels resentment, and beneath the resentment, a strange guilt. That is the buried part of him, pounding on the floor. Every quality left unexplored in your shadow impoverishes your personality. You are walking through life at half strength, and you have forgotten that the other half exists. Your unconscious has not forgotten. It sends you reminders every night. Watch your dreams. The shadow appears there as a figure of your own sex, a stranger, a criminal, a beggar, an enemy. He is a criticism of your character, delivered from within, an inner judge whose verdict usually produces embarrassed silence. Most people wake and dismiss him. I learned to interrogate him. Because there is a work to be done here, and I will not pretend it is easy. I compared it to the labors of Hercules. Long, difficult negotiations with everything you have refused to be. You conduct them outwardly by watching your emotional reactions with radical honesty, especially the disproportionate ones, and inwardly by descending into your dreams. Understand the goal correctly. You are not waging war against your darkness. You are bringing the darkness to the light, and the light to the darkness. There is no light without shadow, and no psychic wholeness without imperfection. I never asked anyone to become perfect. Perfection is a lie the ego tells. I ask you to become whole. If these words are reaching you, subscribe to this channel. What I must say next concerns more than your private life, because the shadow does not end at the borders of your skin. Societies have shadows too. Cultures, nations, entire civilizations, everything a collective refuses to see about itself gathers into what I called the collective shadow, and its scale is horrifying. It is the immensity of harm human beings inflict upon one another and upon the natural world, and the long aftershocks of that harm echoing through generations. You recognize it by the same signature as the personal shadow, only enlarged. Projection of darkness onto other peoples, violence and oppression. The invisibility of present suffering, the denial of present responsibility. Sometimes it acts out nakedly in wars, massacres, genocides. And sometimes, mark this, it hides beneath attractive cloaks. The missionary's smile. The civilizing mission, the forced language, the erased culture, all of it administered as a kindness. It manifests outwardly as atrocity, persecution, poverty, the death of cultures. But it also burrows inward into individual souls as hatred of oneself and one's own heritage, as depression, as impotence, as the hunger for revenge, the wish that others might finally feel one's own pain. This is what humanity has always called evil. My tradition called it the devil, and a man possessed by it loses his human quality entirely. I watched it happen. I watched Germany, a nation of philosophers and musicians, fall into mass psychosis. Ordinary man joined the movement and committed acts they could never have imagined of themselves. How? Through the door of the personal shadow. Each man's private, unexamined darkness merged with the darkness of millions, and the result set the world on fire. That is the terrible secret. The personal shadow is the bridge to the collective shadow. Evil does not recruit monsters. It recruits ordinary people who never met themselves. Which is why I insisted on one principle above all others. A man must know relentlessly how much good he can do and what crimes he is capable of. Both. The man who believes himself incapable of evil is the most dangerous man alive, because his capacity for it operates without supervision. And what of the past? The wars, the genocides, the oppressions whose effects still persist? The common response is denial dressed as practicality. Put it behind us. Move on. But a buried past behaves exactly like a buried shadow. It grows blacker until it can grow no more, and then history repeats itself. There is only one real medicine, and it is the hardest one: truth-telling. The unspeakable must be spoken, the pain voiced and heard, and responsibility taken, not symbolically by leaders and policies, but deeply within a people. So understand what I am actually asking of you tonight. Your shadow work is not a private indulgence. The courage with which you bear your own darkness frees others from having to carry it for you. Solve the conflict within yourself first, and you become one less door through which the collective madness can enter the world. Perhaps in time you become something more, a person whose consciousness steadies the people around him. The war, as a wise man said, is in us. It is in everyone. Everything is ready to explode, and we are all co-responsible. So I leave you with a question I asked every soul who sat across from me. What have you refused to see in yourself, and how long do you think it will wait? If you are ready to meet him, write below, I will face my shadow, show me. And stay for the next video, the descent has only begun.